Did you know that in 2025, these 10 European countries are cracking down on Filipino immigrants with mass deportations happening right now? This video takes you into the stories of undocumented Filipino immigrants, those working under the table, overstaying their visas, or crossing borders illegally. It's a dramatic journey of real people, from the fears of families back home waiting for every peso, to the anxious glances cast across the European sky. The law is tightening its grip, and they're at the heart of this shift. Where are you watching this from? Philippines, the US, or somewhere in Europe? Drop a comment below, because this story might hit close to home for you or someone you know. We've scoured far and wide to bring you the truest tales, so don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Bizarre World Adventures, and ring the bell. Your support fuels us to keep telling these strange journeys. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Number 10. Norway. Juan, a 25-year-old from Manila, still recalls the day he left home in a dreary afternoon rain, hugging his mother one last time under their leaky, wind-whistling shack, promising to send money for her daily medicine. He left behind a homeland where poverty had clung to his family for years. To Juan, Norway appeared as an alien land, with towering fjords rising from deep blue waters, the northern lights dancing magically across the pitch-black sky, and red wooden houses nestled against snow-covered mountains year-round. But for an undocumented worker like him, it was just a place to toil illegally, no legal visa. A luxury costing tens of millions of pesos his family could never scrape together from days of labor barely enough to buy rice. In a small restaurant in bustling central Oslo, Juan washed dishes from dawn till midnight under dim yellow lights, his hands numb from the icy water seeping through every crevice, saving up 20,000 pesos a month to send home for his mother's medicine and his little siblings' schooling. Something he'd had to abandon himself years ago. One stormy night, as Juan scrubbed a towering stack of greasy dishes in the damp kitchen, his boss stepped in, face unusually stern, voice low. "Juan, the police have noticed you. They sent a letter. You've got 7 days to leave." Juan froze, hands still in the dirty water, rain tapping the tin roof outside like the pounding of his heart. Norway deported about 2,000 people in 2024, a small number compared to others. But for Juan, it marked the end of a dream he'd risked everything to chase, knowing he didn't belong here. He packed his things in a tiny rented room with a broken window facing the white rain, eyes red, gazing into the distance, wondering how his mother would fare without money for medicine in the cold days ahead. Norway wasn't his home, but the longing for his mother and sibling still burned through his restless dreams each night before he had to return, defeated. Number 9. Netherlands. The Netherlands, a land of windmills spinning in the cool breeze, vibrant tulip fields stretching to the horizon, and shimmering canals winding through charming old cities. Despite its poetic facade, undocumented immigrants here face a harsh reality with no mercy. In 2024, the Netherlands deported around 3,000 people without papers, not a massive figure, but enough to send a clear message. If you stay illegally, you'll be found and forced out. Undocumented Filipinos often come here for quiet jobs, cleaning houses, washing dishes in small eateries, or tending gardens in peaceful suburbs. They take the illegal route because work visas demand high skills, strong English, and fees reaching tens of millions of pesos, far beyond the reach of many. These under-the-table jobs pay just a few thousand pesos a week, a pittance against the high cost of living here, as employers keep wages low for hidden workers. The Dutch system is like a tight net, sweeping through every narrow street and company, catching anyone living outside the law. If spotted, deportation papers arrive as fast as wind over the meadows, leaving no time to plead or prepare. The Dutch government wants this country neat and orderly, with no room for illegal immigrants. The canals still flow quietly past quaint red brick houses, but for undocumented workers, they're just silent witnesses to dreams swept away without a sound. Number 8. Denmark. Denmark, with its colorful houses lining endless coastlines, roads alive with bicycles cutting through crisp morning air, and simple joys radiating from coffee sipped by fogged-up windows, feels like a haven. Yet, for undocumented immigrants, it's merely a place to work off the books no legal visa, a prize costing millions of pesos out of reach. One afternoon, Carlo stood silently on a Copenhagen construction site, watching cold winds whip through the grey concrete blocks he'd poured with his own hands over months, his thoughts drifting to his family in Cebu, drowning in debt from last year's failed harvest. He mixed concrete from dawn to dusk in Denmark's biting winter chill, sweat soaking his tattered shirt, faded by dust and wind, scraping together 25,000 pesos a month to send home for his wife, to pay off loans and buy school books for their kids. One day, resting under a barren tree on the quiet site, chewing a stale bread crust after a grueling shift, Carlo caught whispers from nearby workers. They're checking now, those without papers are done for. He forced a laugh, convinced his low profile kept him safe. But the next day, his boss pulled him aside in a shadowy corner of the site, face grim. "Carlo, I got a notice you've got 5 days to leave." Denmark deported about 1,500 people in 2024, a modest tally compared to others, but for Carlo, it crushed the months he'd hunched over in the cold to earn every peso sent home. He didn't flee, just sat quietly amid the wind's howl through his concrete work, staring at the sky, wondering if 25,000 pesos a month would see his wife through the days ahead without him. Denmark wasn't his to keep, but the memory of those bitter labor days would follow him back to Cebu, where his family waited in vain. Number 7. Sweden. Sweden, a land of endless pine forests stretching into the distance, crystal-clear lakes mirroring the sky, and long winter days blanketed in snow across every corner. Once a welcoming haven for immigrants, it now stands as an invisible wall, blocking all hope for those without papers. In 2024, this country deported around 6,000 undocumented people, a number that signals a stark shift in its immigration policies. If you overstay your visa or work under the table, don't expect to slip past the Swedish government's watchful eyes. They spare no one. They scrutinize every spot, from tiny nail salons tucked in narrow alleys to bustling restaurants in central Stockholm. Once caught, deportation papers arrive so fast you barely have time to brace yourself or pack your things. Many Filipinos choose the illegal path because they don't meet the strict requirements for a work visa, lacking specialized job experience. Under-the-table gigs pay just a few thousand pesos a week, hardly enough to offset the constant dread of being caught or the daily unease. Is that meager sum worth trading for the peaceful life they left behind at home? Number 6. United Kingdom. The United Kingdom, home to the mighty Big Ben, elegant afternoon teas basking in gentle sunsets, and fog-draped streets that have cloaked London through centuries of upheaval. Post-Brexit, those without papers see it as an impenetrable fortress where dreams are buried beneath the ironclad rules of a government that shows no leniency to anyone. In 2024, the UK deported about 3,000 people. Filipinos often come here legally as nurses in busy hospitals or domestic helpers in wealthy homes, armed with proper visas. But if you stay illegally, the law won't spare you, no matter how long you've lived here or how much you've contributed. They check everywhere, from noisy, crowded markets filled with vendors' shouts, to dusty construction sites thick with exhaust, to cramped boarding houses packed tight in far-off suburbs. If you're caught, you could be on a plane in mere days, no lengthy procedures or chance to explain. The government sends a loud message. The UK is no longer a hideout, no longer the promised land for undocumented immigrants, despite once being a dream for so many. Many turn to illegal entry because visas demand high English proficiency they can't meet, plus steep costings of millions of pesos beyond the reach of poor Filipino families. Off-the-books jobs pay little, just a few thousand pesos a week, too shaky for such a huge risk. Yet it's the only escape they see to support loved ones waiting back home. London's fog still blankets its endless streets, but for the undocumented, dreams vanish faster than the fleeting wisps in the biting wind. Number 5. Spain. Rosa still remembers the day she left Davao in a misty dawn, her 2 small children clinging to her legs, sobbing under their rickety roof as they begged her not to go to Madrid. But if she didn't, what work could she find to feed them through those hungry days? Spain unfolded before her with golden sunlight, flooding every corner of the vast city, the passionate strum of flamenco echoing through stone-paved alleys between ancient houses, and soccer matches igniting the streets with cheers every weekend night. Yet, for an undocumented worker like Rosa, it's a merciless furnace, scorching her dreams under a relentless sun. She toiled in Gran Madrid homes, cleaning from dawn to dusk with trembling, weary hands after hours of scrubbing polished wooden floors and marble stairs, saving up 30,000 pesos a month to send home so her kids could eat and have books for school like her, forced to drop out as a child. A legal visa was a distant fantasy. Tens of millions of pesos for paperwork she could never afford, from days of odd jobs, barely scraping by. Her only skill, the tireless devotion of a mother, sacrificing everything for her children. One blistering afternoon, as she knelt scrubbing stairs in a sprawling villa, sweat soaking her threadbare shirt, urgent knocks rattled the door. She looked up to see police, their faces cold, wordlessly handing her a deportation notice, 3 days to leave. Spain sent 8,000 people packing in 2024, a hefty tally reflecting its harsh stance. Rosa crumpled to the floor, hands clutching her head in despair, her children's faces swimming through her tears as she pictured their days ahead without money for food or school. Spain's sun still blazed through the villa's wide windows, but it couldn't warm Rosa's shattered heart as she faced losing her dream, leaving only pain for the kids awaiting her back home. Number 4. Italy. Pedro, you've got to go to Italy. There's not enough to live on in Quezon. His brother's words echoed in Pedro's mind as he stepped off the boat he'd taken illegally, carrying the hope of earning money to feed his 3 hungry kids back in their crumbling house in a rain-soaked homeland. Italy unfolded before him with sprawling vineyards stretching under the Mediterranean sun. In Tuscany, the rich scent of pizza wafting from wood-fired ovens in tiny villages, and poetic stone-paved roads winding through lush green hills. But for an undocumented worker like Pedro, it was a locked door where dreams were snuffed out by a cold, unrelenting law. He worked off the books in vast vineyards, picking grapes from dawn to dusk with hands bloodied by thorns and scorched by the sun, saving 22,000 pesos a month to send home for his wife to buy rice and milk for their kids growing up in want. A legal visa demanded a formal job contract and tens of millions of pesos, things he could never secure, with hands used only to wield a hoe and a back bent from years of farming in a poor village. One day, resting under a vineyard tree, chewing dry bread to stave off hunger after a long shift, a co-worker whispered in a trembling voice, "Watch out, Pedro. I heard they're checking someone got nabbed yesterday." Pedro worried and prayed he'd stay hidden, but the next morning a loudspeaker blared his name across the field, delivered in the flat tone of police standing just rows away. Italy deported over 5,000 people in 2024, a figure reflecting the authorities' firm stance on illegal immigrants. Pedro stood frozen in the field, clutching the last bunch of grapes he'd picked that morning, gazing at the endless rows one final time before being led away, unable to say a word to the friends he'd worked beside under the blazing sun. Italy wasn't his home, but the ache for his 3 children still seared through his restless dreams each night before boarding the plane back. Number 3. Germany. Lisa sat quietly in the corner of a small Berlin restaurant kitchen, staring at a mountain of dirty dishes, the clock ticking through the late night as she thought of her little village in Iloilo, where her brother was studying at university thanks to every peso she sent from this distant land. Germany shimmered with lively Oktoberfest beer glasses clinking in laughter, sleek cars speeding down wide roads, and modern cities aglow with towering skyscrapers under dazzling lights. Yet, for an undocumented immigrant like her, it was an unyielding steel wall, crushing dreams under a rigid law that spared no pity for those without proper papers. She worked off the books in a cramped, greasy kitchen, washing dishes from dusk till midnight, with hands blistered from hours in soapy water, scraping together 23,000 pesos a month to send home, so her brother could keep chasing his dream of escaping the poverty that had gripped their family for years. A legal visa required German fluency and tens of millions of pesos for paperwork beyond her reach, with eyes used to rice fields and hands trained only for hard labor back home. One still night, as she wiped down wooden tables in the restaurant's dim corner under a faint yellow glow, a regular customer leaned in, voice low with worry. "Be careful, Lisa. The police are lurking around here. Someone got caught last night." She gave a sad smile, thinking her quiet days made her invisible. But the next morning, a knock rattled her run-down boarding house door, and police stood there, deportation notice in hand, their blank faces staring through the eerie silence. Germany deported 13,000 people in 2022, a hefty count showing its strictness with people like her. Lisa left Berlin with a small suitcase, stealing one last look at the skyscrapers through the morning mist, wondering how her brother would fare without the money she'd fought to send for his education, the dream her family had pinned on her. Number 2. France. "Hold on, Jose. Paris will give us a better life. You have to go." His father's words rang in Jose's ears as he left Baguio, hugging his parents tightly under their leaking hut in a rainy afternoon gale, shouldering the hope of building them a new home with his own hands. France emerged as the city of light, with the Eiffel Tower soaring proudly against clear skies, the warm aroma of fresh bread drifting from ovens on quaint streets, and romantic roads alive with couples hand in hand under golden lamps. But for an undocumented worker like him, it was a trap with no way out, where dreams were choked by an iron-fisted law sparing no one who crossed the line. Jose worked off the books in Paris' distant outskirts, washing cars from dawn to dusk, with hands raw from endless wiping in the summer's scorching heat, saving 21,000 pesos a month to send home so his parents could eat and fix their rundown shelter through rainy days back home. One sweltering noon, as he scrubbed a windshield with sweat streaming down his sun-darkened face under a cloudless sky, a co-worker yanked his arm, voice panicked. "Run, Jose! The police are here! I saw their car!" Jose didn't run, just stood still as they handed him a deportation notice minutes later, their cold faces piercing his heart. France deported 12,000 people in 2024. A stark number underscoring its crackdown on people like him. From a quiet roadside corner, Jose called home, voice breaking. "I've got to go back, Dad," then boarded a plane 2 days later. No chance to bid farewell to the friends he'd toiled under that relentless sun. Paris didn't hold him, but his promise to his parents echoed in his mind on the long flight home. Number 1. Greece. Elena woke in a leaking rented room in Greece. Her 5-year-old's cries for milk piercing the cold dawn as she recalled her small, Leyte village, left behind to escape the poverty that had haunted her family for years. Greece appeared with ancient myths of gods atop Mount Olympus, emerald seas hugging sunlit poetic islands, but for an undocumented immigrant like her, it was an unyielding battlefield where dreams were crushed by a merciless law. She worked off the books in a tucked-away eatery near the northern border, washing dishes and cooking simple meals from sunrise to midnight, with hands aching from endless soaking, saving 19,000 pesos a month to send home for milk and clothes for her child living with her frail grandmother. One evening, cradling her son along a narrow street to catch a breeze after a grueling day under a pale moon, police blocked her path, their icy stares and clipped demand cutting through. "Show your papers or come with us." Greece deported 11,000 people in 2024, a hefty toll reflecting its hard line. Clutching her child, Eleanor sobbed as they were torn apart for hours before boarding a plane home the next morning with only a few old clothes in a torn bag. Greece wasn't theirs to keep, but a mother's pain at failing to shield her child from fate would forever scar her heart, even as its turquoise waves lapped the white sands in the morning light. And so we've journeyed through 10 European nations, from Norway's icy fjords to Greece's blazing sun, where the dreams of people like Juan, Carlo, Rosa, and Elena are tested by unforgiving laws. They left home chasing a better life, working in the shadows to send every peso back to their families, but the cost was days steeped in fear, futile escapes, and an empty-handed return. What do you make of this journey? Share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you watching from? And which story hit you hardest? Hit that like button if this moved you, and subscribe to Bizarre World Adventures so you don't miss more wild tales from around the globe. We'll keep bringing you adventures that spark your curiosity.